But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off the sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both lion and bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defiled the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." Good morning, family of God. I come to you this morning from 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 34, where David is preparing to face Goliath. David is having to convince Saul now that he has the ability to face a giant. David has never faced a giant in his life. He'd seen nothing like this huge 9 feet tall man. He never faced any warrior like this. But what David had faced in his lifetime were lions and bears. Now, I don't know if you watch National Geographic like I do. I love watching lions and bears on National Geographic. They are such beautiful creatures. And I'll toss in right here. I don't see how any man could ever kill a lion or a bear for sport. They are some of the most beautiful animals that the Lord has ever created. And David had never faced anything like Goliath, but he faced some really tall bears in his lifetime. And if you've ever seen a lion or a bear up close, you know that they could be so terrifying and menacing. These are natural born killers. They have no remorse about hurting or killing. It's what they were born to do. It's nothing against man. They have no taste for man's blood, but they will kill a man if he gets in the way of them eating. And David, while tending sheep, has had to deal with some wild lions and wild bears. These are not tamed animals. These are animals who would attack the sheep, and David would go out, chase them down, take the sheep from their mouth, and then kill them if they tried to attack him. Now, like I said before, I don't know if you've ever seen one up close, but these animals are vicious. But David had the heart, the guts, the manpower to destroy a lion and a bear with his own hands. Didn't sound like much if you're trying to face a giant like Goliath, but to David, it meant everything. You see, the Lord had prepared David for facing giants. David had done some supernatural things with wild animals. He'd protect his sheep from vicious predators. And David believed that his trials and his struggles while tending sheep and having to fight off wild animals was a direct result of what he was facing right now. David knew that he had the power to defeat the giant because of what God had already brought him through. And I want to share this with someone today. Oh, you may not have ever faced a giant in your life. The predators you faced before now they seem a lot smaller. At the time, I'm sure when David fought that bear and lion, they seemed real big in his life. But now compared to what he's dealing with in this giant, those bears and lions seem really small. But I want to tell you something. Whenever you're on the training ground, whenever you're in preparation to face a greater foe like a Goliath in your life, you first start out with some lions and some bears. You don't just jump right in and face a giant like Goliath, who is a trained warrior, a killer, a man who can think, who can fight, who's over 9 feet tall, whose weapons weigh more than you do. His shield and his spear, his sword, and they are huge. But David knew that if he could whoop a bear and a lion with his own hands, then why couldn't God give him the power to whoop a giant? I want to encourage you today. You've already faced some lions and bears like this giant you're facing right now before. Oh, they're different. It's a different warrior. Yeah, they fight with different weapons, but you've already faced an enemy before. And the Lord is trying to encourage you right now, and that you've been training all of your life to face the giant you're facing right now. You should walk out with that giant with confidence. You see, what I like about David is that David is having to convince Saul that he can whoop a man whom he's never faced before. He's convincing him because he's saying, listen, have you ever seen anybody kill a lion or bear with their bare hands? Have you ever seen that, Saul? I'm sure Saul was like, Lord, I ain't never seen that. Well, then I'm telling you, if I can kill a lion or a bear with my bare hands, well, surely I can face this giant with a slingshot. Man, I want to encourage you today that this Goliath in your life that seems so menacing, so tall, overshadowing you, he's taunting you, trying to call you out, trying to make you afraid. Man, God wants you to have the confidence that not only can you face him and defeat him, but you can also tell other folk that God is going to bring me through what I'm dealing with right now. You want to know how I know God's going to bring me through what I got to deal with right now? Because he's already brought me through some other things that I thought were impossible in my life before even now. Man, it's so good to know that David had already had the heart and the courage to face some lions and some bears because he was defending his father's sheep. They weren't even his own sheep. He was doing this for his daddy. David knew that he had to face this lion and bear on his own, that he couldn't let him punk him out there and take his father's sheep, or he has to deal with his daddy. And I want you to know that this giant that's taunting and trying to face you, he hadn't defiled you. He's defiled the army of God. And when you face God and defile him, the Lord will give you the power to defeat that giant in his name. See, this war is not about you. He may be calling your name and wanting to defeat you, but this is all about the God you serve. He's not challenging you, he's challenging God. And no man can stand and face God and challenge him and win. Man, I want to remove your fear today. I want you to know that you've been through some struggles, some battles, and maybe you've lost a few, but you won many. And God has brought you through all the things prior to this. He's been preparing you for this day. Yes, it looks different. The enemy looks different now. He looks bigger. He looks menacing. You're in a different field now. David was in a different arena. He wasn't in a sheep pen right now. David was out on the battlefield with opposing armies facing each other. But David had the faith that if God can help me defeat my past enemies, he can help me defeat my present ones now as well. I want you to know that God wants you to be encouraged in him, strengthened in him, to know that this battle is not yours, it is the Lord's, and that you have the power to overcome even foes you've never seen before. David took a slingshot and 5 rocks. He used what he was used to working with, and he defeated a giant who looked terrifying. All based on the fact that he'd already won some battles, that God had already brought him through some things in his past. What God wants you to know right now is that, son or daughter, I've brought you through something similar to this before. And though this looks different, I'm going to bring you through this one too. Put your faith and hope in God, not in yourself. Know that God has given you the power and the strength, but your strength comes from him. It has nothing to do with you. Those rocks weren't magical, but what they were anointed by the hand of God and placed in David's hands to accomplish a task. And God has beckoned you to the task you're facing right now. Pick up your slingshot, pick up your rocks, and go face that giant. He may laugh at you, he may point fingers at you and jeer at you, but you are facing him in the name of an all-powerful God, and he has defiled the righteousness of God. And it's your job to defeat him in God's name. Be blessed, endure through all your trials, and know that God is still with you.